The Lord had destroyed the household of Ahab, appointing Jehu king of Israel, and had promised that Jehu's family would reign for 4 generations, because he had so effectively destroyed the household of Ahab. But Jehu didn't walk in the ways of the Lord himself, and so the nation of Israel continued to worship the calves at Dan and Bethel, and the nation was considerably weakened, as God is really in the process of dismantling the kingdom that he had built up. In the 23rd year of Joash, king of Judah, the son of Ahaziah, Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, became king over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 17 years. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord, and followed the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who had made Israel sin. He did not depart from them. Then the anger of the Lord was aroused against Israel, and he delivered them into the hand of Hazael king of Syria, and into the hand of Ben-Hadad the son of Hazael, all their days. So Jehoahaz pleaded with the Lord, and the Lord listened to him, for he saw the oppression of Israel, because the king of Syria oppressed him. Then the Lord gave Israel a deliverer, so that they escaped from under the hand of the Syrians, and the children of Israel dwelt in their tents as before. Nevertheless, they did not depart from the sins of the house of Jeroboam, who had made Israel sin, but walked in them. And the wooden image also remained in Samaria, for he left of the army of Jehoahaz only 50 horsemen, 10 chariots, and 10,000 foot soldiers, for the king of Syria had destroyed them and made them like the dust at threshing. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoahaz, all that he did, and his might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Jehoahaz rested with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria. Then Joash his son reigned in his place. In the 37th year of Joash king of Judah, Jehoash the son of Jehoahaz became king over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 16 years. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart from all the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel sin, but walked in them. And the rest of the acts of Joash, all that he did, and his might with which he fought against Amaziah king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? So Joash rested with his fathers. Then Jeroboam sat on his throne, and Joash was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Elisha had become sick with the illness of which he would die. Then Joash the king of Israel came down to him and wept over his face, and said, O my father, the chariots of Israel and their horsemen. And Elisha said to him, Take a bow and some arrows. So he took himself a bow and some arrows. Then he said to the king of Israel, Put your hand on the bow. So he put his hand on it. And Elisha put his hands on the king's hands. And he said, Open the east window. And he opened it. And Elisha said, Shoot. And he shot. And he said, The arrow of the Lord's deliverance, and the arrow of deliverance from Syria. For you must strike the Syrians at Aphek, till you have destroyed them. Then he said, Take the arrows. So he took them, and he said to the king of Israel, Strike the ground. So he struck 3 times, and stopped. And the man of God was angry with him, and said, You should have struck 5 or 6 times. Then you would have struck Syria till you had destroyed it. But now you will strike Syria only 3 times. Then Elisha died, and they buried him. And the raiding bands from Moab invaded the land in the spring of the year. So it was, as they were burying a man, that suddenly they spied a band of raiders, and they put the man in the tomb of Elisha. Then the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha. He revived and stood on his feet. And Hazael king of Syria oppressed Israel all the days of Jehoahaz. But the Lord was gracious to them, had compassion on them, and regarded them. because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and would not yet destroy them or cast them from his presence. Now Hazael, king of Syria, died. Then Ben-Hadad, his son, reigned in his place, and Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, recaptured from the hand of Ben-Hadad, the son of Hazael, the cities which he had taken out of the hand of Jehoahaz his father by war. 3 times Joash defeated him and recaptured the cities of Israel. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we read together from 2 Kings chapter 13, what seems to me to be a rather sad decline in the nation of Israel. God had said Jehu would have 4 generations, and these are Jehu, Jehoahaz, Joash, and Jeroboam II. And Israel is continually harassed by Hazael, king of Syria. But they call upon the Lord, and the Lord does give them some relief, some deliverance. They are not wiped out, even though the army of Israel is severely weakened. Only 10 chariots, 50 horsemen, 10,000 foot soldiers. Nevertheless, Israel has not committed themselves wholeheartedly to walk in the ways of the Lord. There's still an altar to Baal in Samaria. There's still the altars at Dan and Bethel. And so Jehoahaz reigned 17 years. Then Joash his son reigned 16 years. And in that period of time, Elisha is very old, and the king of Israel comes down in respect to this old prophet. O my father, the chariots of Israel and their horsemen. Everyone knew the story of Elijah and Elisha, how the chariots of fire had separated them when Elijah was caught up to heaven, and how the chariots of the Lord had protected Elisha all through his life. And Elisha encourages him to resist Syria, even though Syria is in such a dominant position. And so Elisha says, "Bring your bow," and puts his hand on Joash's hand and says, "Shoot an arrow through the window facing east," that is, towards Syria. And then he says, "Strike the ground with the arrows." So the whole point of this exercise is that Syria might be defeated by Israel. And Joash strikes the ground 3 times, which frustrates Elisha, because 3 strikes against Hazael will not destroy them. You should have struck 5 or 6 times, but now you will only strike Syria 3 times. Well, Elisha dies. Joash remains king. Hazael, the king of Syria, dies, and his son Ben-Hadad takes over. And Joash resists him on 3 occasions, recovering cities that Syria had taken from Israel, according to the word of the Lord. But the Lord has one more thing to teach us through Elisha, because he is a picture of the God who saves. Elisha is buried. One would think that's the end of it, but no. At that time, the Moabites sent raiding parties, and one of these raiding parties interrupted a funeral where they were burying a man, and so in haste they put the man in Elisha's tomb. And when the man touched Elisha's bones, he came back to life again. He stood up alive. Surely that pictures the fact that although Jesus died and was buried, yet he gives life to those who draw near to him. As Paul would say it, "I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ lives in me." And as we die, we have the hope of resurrection. The thing that strikes us in this story is the fact of God's grace to his people who have a covenant with him, even though they continually fail. When people call upon the Lord, he does help. The Lord was gracious to them, had compassion on them, and regarded them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and would not destroy them or cast them out of his presence.